Hello, everyone. It is Miss Man, and I am back to read more of The Skeleton Man. Hopefully, you've liked the first bit of the first chapter. We're going to continue on reading the first chapter, maybe into the second. We'll see how long it takes me. Um, so we left off where Molly was telling us about the story of her old uncle, a Native American family that she comes from. And there was an old uncle in the longhouse, and he burnt his finger, if you remember, and then he ate all the skin, everything on his body except his skeleton, and he was still hungry. And Molly came back late because she had helped a rabbit that was drowning in the river. And so the rabbit came back and helped Molly escape her scary skeleton uncle and helped her bring back all the relatives that the uncle ate. And so we left off with my mom and dad told me stories like that all the time before they vanished, disappeared, gone just like that. I was on the TV when they disappeared. You probably saw me on Unsolved Mysteries. The news reporter said into her microphone, "Child left alone in house for over 3 days, terrified, existing on cornflakes and canned food." Actually, I went to school on Tuesday and called out for pizza once. Mom had left money on the dresser when they went out that Saturday evening and never returned. I didn't know they hadn't come back until Sunday. I'd gone to bed early Saturday evening, expecting them to wake me up when they came home, like they always did. But not this time. When I woke up that Sunday morning, I knew something was totally wrong. The house was quiet. Usually my parents were way up, both up way before me. I should have heard Dad in the kitchen banging the pans around. Sunday was always his day for making breakfast, and he made a big thing about it. He'd thaw out a whole quart of blueberries from the freezer and warm up some real maple syrup. But no noise came from the kitchen. No pans rattling, no 70s music playing on the kitchen CD player. My dad is a freak for the Eagles and says it's impossible for him to cook without them. I sat in bed and held my breath. No rhythmic pounding of my mother running in place in her bedroom down the hall. I looked at the clock. 8:30. By now, Mom should have been halfway through her first set of aerobics, but there were no sounds of thundering sneakers. The only thumping I could hear was my own heart. Maybe maybe they'd been out so late that they were still sleeping. Have been late when they came back because I'd finally drifted off to sleep after midnight, waiting for them. I stood up and went down into the hall. Mom? Dad? No answer. It seemed to take me forever to reach the door to their room. It was like I was walking under water. The door was only half shut. I pushed it open, not sure what I'd see. Maybe they'd jump out at me and tickle me and laugh at their joke. But no one was there. Their bed hadn't been slept in. No one was behind the door or in the closet or anywhere. Not there in the bedroom nor anywhere in the house. And in the car was gone from the garage. There was no sign of anyone. It was a cold, gray day, as gray as the long driveway leading down to the road. I didn't go outside to look around. I could tell it was going to rain soon. I didn't go to a neighbor's house because I couldn't. We lived out in the country without any neighbors anywhere near us. It was freaky, that's for sure, but I wasn't scared. Not yet. I just felt it in my bones that they'd be back. I went into the living room and turned on the TV, waiting. I have no idea what I watched, even though I sat there for hours. I didn't know if it was sports or cartoons or the Home Shopping Network. For some reason, I never turned on the news, even or thought it might have had something on it if they'd been in an accident. But that couldn't be it. Someone would have come to my house to tell me, or there would have been a call. I looked at the phone, hoping it would ring, and praying it wouldn't. Rain began to hammer at the windows about noon, and I went around the house making sure they were all shut. I looked at my bedroom window at Dad's tool shed. Its one window was shut, and I was glad about that. I didn't want to go out into the rain by myself. Finally, about 2 in the afternoon, I decided to make breakfast. I set the table for the three of us, got out the juice, the syrup, the blueberries, and the milk, and everything, and the napkins that I folded so they stood up on the plates. They'd come in all apologetic, and I would say, "No problem, look, I even fixed breakfast for us." I can't explain why I thought anyone would want breakfast in mid afternoon. It made sense then. I must have been preoccupied, what with listening for their car to pull in, because I made the pancakes all wrong, so they were runny and then I burnt them. I laughed some when I was cleaning up the mess I'd made, just knowing they'd come in right in the middle of it and tease me and tell me it's all right, and then we'd all go out for dinner. But it didn't happen that way. Finally, about 8 p.m., I ended up eating cornflakes with warm milk and what I had left of the thawed, soggy blueberries. I got my pillow and some blankets and made a bed for myself on the couch in front of the TV. That way they'd see me when they would come in. They'd be sorry and I'd be upset, but I would finally forgive them. I also didn't like I also didn't feel like going upstairs all by myself. Besides, Dad would pick me up and carry me to my room like he used to when I was a little girl. I knew I was much too big for that now, but the thought of it, my dad's strong arms lifting me and my mom patting my face with her hand, calmed me down and off I went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning on Monday and found I was still alone in the house, I guess I should have called someone, but I didn't. I didn't get dressed for school. I didn't even turn the TV off, which had been going on all night. I just sat and looked at the phone. The first time it rang, I jumped a mile. It was from work for Mom. I told them she was sick. I did the same thing when Dad's partner, Mondini, called from the bank to see where he was. Mom and I always called him Almond Ale. "Shouldn't you be at school, Molly?" Almond Ale said. "I should, but I'm I'm sick too," I said. I could hear the long pause at the end of the other line. If I was sick, he was wondering, how come I was talking on the phone now? So, just like my parents always said, one lie had to lead to another. I'm better than they are, though, I said in a quick, nervous voice. I mean, I didn't lose my voice like they did, and so that's why I answered the phone, but it hurts to talk, so I'll have to hang up now. Bye. Maybe Almond Ale was the one who got suspicious and called the police. That night, I went around to all the doors to make sure they were still locked, and I checked the windows. I turned off the TV and then, but because it seemed too quiet, I just turned it on again. Not real loud, just on. I went upstairs and turned on the radio in Mom and Dad's bedroom, and I lay there for a while on top of their bed, listening to classical music. I still wasn't scared, but after a while, I just got up and went into my room. I locked my door and put a chair in front of it. There's this song that my mom taught me once, one that she called a lonesome song, a song you'll sing when you're all alone and you need a friend. If a friend hears you, then they'll sing back. I sang the lonesome song very softly to myself. Hey, you, I, na, ya, ya, nay. I kept on singing it even though no one answered it. It made me feel less alone, and I fell asleep. I kept on singing it even though no one answered. It made me feel less alone, and I fell asleep. The next morning it was easier. I got up, got dressed, had more cornflakes, brushed my teeth, and caught the school bus at the bottom of our driveway. I didn't say anything to anyone about Mom and Dad being gone. They're on a trip, I was telling myself now. Everything's fine. They'll be back. I even remembered to make up a really official looking note on my computer saying that I'd been sick and that's why I had missed school, and I signed it with my mom's name. But maybe the way I worded it wasn't quite right. I know the woman in the office looked at me strangely when I handed it to her with a big smile. Maybe she's the one who made the call, or maybe it was Mrs. Shabbos. I smiled and laughed so much in class that day that Miss Shabbos looked over at me with one eyebrow raised, in a way that she always does when she thinks something is wrong. But I avoided talking with her. If I talked with her about it, then it would mean something was wrong. I was so sure that everything would work out, I never doubted. Not even when the people who came to the house the next night started questioning me, nor when the social service lady and the two cops escorted me out. I just kept saying, I have to stay here. They'll be back. I even said that to the news people when they showed up. I don't know who called them. Maybe they just sensed the way shark smells blood and comes swarming in when someone's been wounded. It just looks like I was crying on that TV show. The microphones make your voice sound all weird, like you're hysterical or something. And the lights make your eyes look all wild and scared. They even made mine water so much that you might have thought I was crying. I wasn't. I knew Mom and Dad were going to be back. I still know they're going to be back, but I don't want to talk about that. I just wanted to explain that I was never afraid. Not at all. Until later that night when this old guy showed up. Molly, the social service woman said, someone is here for you, one of your relatives. That was a big surprise to me. I didn't even know I had any relatives anywhere near here. Mom is an orphan, and all Dad's closest relatives are dead. It's a really sad story how his brothers died in a car accident and his sisters drowned. And then there was this big fire while Dad was away at school and his parents were in the house. That left only his two aunts to raise him, but they were old people and they died before I was born. I think that's the reason why we'd never gone up to the reservation. There's nobody close to Dad there anymore, and that makes him too sad. But Dad had said that there were his cousins and that maybe sometime we'd get to meet them, although they lived way out in California. The social service woman led me into another room. A tall, elderly, thin man with stooped shoulders, all dressed in gray, even his shoes, was standing there looking out the window. Here's your niece, the social service lady said in a chirpy voice. He turned around to look down at me with the face that was so thin it looked like bone. He didn't look Indian. Though his skin was almost as brown as my dad's, it was as if he dyed himself that color. His eyes were round and unblinking, like the eyes of an owl. He smiled, and big. I could see how big his teeth were. I don't know him, I said, taking a step backward. Of course not, chirped the lady. He's been out of the country. She smiled at him, and he nodded back at her. They were two adults, and I was just a kid. What could I know about anything? You see, she said, taking the tone that certain grown-ups use when children, uh, that, let me start over. You see, she said, taking the tone that certain grown-ups use with children and idiots who are the same in their minds. This is such a wonderful coincidence. Your great uncle here moved into our town just 2 weeks ago without even knowing that your father, his dear own nephew, was here. He just happened to see the story in our news and came right over. You are his flesh and blood, dear. I looked up at him again, and he nodded. There was a little smile on his face. It was as if he knew what I was thinking, as if he knew I knew he wasn't who he said he was, but there was nothing I could do to stop this. I don't know him, I said again. I've never heard of him, and I don't care if he is my uncle. My parents will be back soon, and my teacher said I could stay with her if you're worried about me being home by myself. That was true. Mrs. Chavez had left only an hour ago. She had come to the offices where I was being kept. She had agreed with me that my parents would be back soon, but she had suggested that for now I just might stay with her so I wouldn't have to be alone. But social services wouldn't hear of it, not when an actual relative was coming to get me. The lady shook her head. She was losing her patience. Dear, she said, we have checked things very thoroughly. She turned and gestured to the tall stranger she was determined to hand me over to. The expression on her face said that she was sorry to bother him, but they needed to humor me to keep me from making a scene. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a big wallet. It was covered with snakeskin. Here, she said, taking the wallet and holding it out to me. I put my hands behind my back. I didn't want to touch it. Oh, she said in an exasperated voice. Oh, look. She flipped the wallet open, and there was a driver's license with a picture of the man who was saying he was my uncle. The picture looked more human than he did, but it was him. I looked over at him. A horrible thought came to me. Maybe I was the one who could see him. Maybe I was the only one who could see him in this way. Maybe he looked normal to other people. I snuck a glance at him. He gave me a little nod and knowingly smiled again. A shiver went down my back. Dear, look here, the lady said, her impatient finger pointing to the license. There was his name, the same last name as my family's. She flipped the license over to show me another clear plastic pocket with the photo in it. It was another smiling face of my father, the high school graduation photo he had showed me more than once. She flipped again, and there was a picture of Mom and Dad's wedding. The photos were just the same as those my dad's always carried with him in his wallet. The wedding photo even seemed to have the same torn corner. She slapped the wallet shut and handed it back. Then it's settled, she said. Until your parents return, you will be in the custody of your great uncle. And that was that. Unlike in a court of law, when grown-ups make a decision about a kid's future, there is no appeal. I was just so worn out from all the attention that I didn't protest. I let him take me to this old spooky house. What was that? What was that? What was that? Footsteps. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Now I am afraid. Knock on the door. Chapter 2. It's the 7th night that I've been in this house. I should be ready for his routine by now, but I'm not. First, there is the all too familiar sound of heavy feet thumping up the stairs. Then there's this long silence, and he catches his breath. There's exactly 32 stairs, so he does this 11 times. The 12th time is when I hear the wood on the landing creaking. Then he comes to the worst part, the silence. Because even though he makes noise coming up the stairs, the noise always stops when he reaches the top. Just that first creak when he steps from the last stair. And then nothing. I imagine that his feet don't really move. He just glides half an inch above the rug like Dracula in the movies. I know that it can't be what happens. I know I'm just scaring myself, and that's the thickness of the rug in the hallway that cushions his footsteps so I can't hear them. But even so, I find myself getting up from the bed to stand in the middle of the room, staring at the chair I have in front of the door. And I'm thinking, maybe, just maybe, he won't come to my door tonight. Maybe he'll just go down the hall and into his room and hang by his toes from the rafters or whatever he does. Maybe he'll just leave me in peace. As always, I'm holding my breath. I'm listening like a deer does when it catches the scent of a mountain lion, and then in the wind it changes so it can't smell it anymore. But the deer knows the lion is out there somewhere. Maybe moving away, maybe moving, getting closer, maybe whack, whack. The crack of his bony knuckles against the thick wood of the door makes me jump a mile. But I don't scream like I did the first night when he did this after I was brought here. You all right? He says. His voice isn't all that scary, even though it's muffled by the door and the sounds in the distant voice of a memory of a ghost. I lean away back from the door, trying to make my voice sound as far away from it as possible. I'm okay. I'm going in bed. I'm going to sleep. I say, then I wait. Snick. That's it. It's the sound of the lock on the outside. Like every other night, he's locked me in. The first night it scared me, but now it makes me breathe a sigh of relief. I count under my breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I hear it, the sound of his feet going back down the stairs. And unless he comes floating down the hall at midnight or maybe flying outside to peer in my window, That's it for the night. I can try to go to sleep now. I'm locked in and, I guess, safe. And like the other nights before this, I will try not to think about what it is that I am locked in against. I will try not to think about why there are bars on my windows. I look around the room. There's not much to see. There's a four-poster bed, the bedside stand, and a table by the window, which is covered with thick purple curtains. The walls are bare, though there are square and rectangular places where the wood isn't quite so dark. I guess there used to be pictures hanging there. There's no closet, just one of those old standing wardrobes. It has only 6 coat hangers in it, but all my stuff is still in the suitcase and the cardboard box I brought with me. I'm not planning to stay long, so I don't want to unpack. All the furniture in the room seems to be pretty old, all made of dark wood. The rug on the floor is new and it's cream colored. It doesn't really go with everything else in the room, but at least it means that things aren't so dark in here. I'm grateful for that because the only light in this one is on the nightstand and it's got a 40-watt bulb in it. There's also a light in the bathroom, which is attached to the room. I always leave the bathroom door open with the light turned on. I walk over to the window. Bad idea. A voice is saying to me, but I do it anyway. Don't look outside. But I can't help myself. I reach for the curtain, feel the heavy fabric in my hand, and pull it back. The whole world explodes into a great burst of light and sound. Chapter 3, The Dream. I don't scream. It was only, I'm going to stop right there. Hopefully you like it. And I will continue reading again. Let me know how you like it. Put something in the comment form, Miss Van. Thanks. Bye.